What up, what up? It's your boy, Will Nicholls. And I'm here once again, bringing you the goods, the astrology of 2021. Right now, we are going to be talking about the new moon in Capricorn. It's a very, very powerful new moon in Capricorn. A lot is going on. Wow. I mean, a lot's going on collectively, as we've seen, but a lot is going on now. So we're going to just dive in because I want to get right to the nitty gritty about what's been happening in the cosmos, my friends. All right. So first and foremost, we need to look at the fact that this new moon, notes over here, there we go. This new moon is, as we can see, conjunct Pluto. Okay. So first and foremost, a new moon in Capricorn. I mean, the general bounty of the new moon in Capricorn is establishing new connections, establishing. I mean, there's a lot of themes around business, a lot of themes around economy, a lot of themes around security, boundaries. But to me, this is really just calling on us to really look at the structure of how things have been. And what needs to be rearranged, what needs to be perhaps flipped upside down, and what also needs to be anchored in. And I mean, when we look at that on a personal level, personally, we can look at that and say, okay, well, hey, listen, this is, we're going through this period of, it's a painful growth period, and it's going to get a little bit more painful before it becomes better, but it will get better. Okay, and I mean, the new moon in Capricorn, the blessings that are coming out of this, especially for cardinal signs, like, the last couple of years for cardinal signs have been pretty wild with the nodes and the eclipses in cardinal signs. Now we're shifting into cardinal signs being in Gemini, and the nodes being in Gemini and Sagittarius. And with that, we have the mutable energy, but we're not done with the cardinal energy, my friends, as we can see with this new moon. Because we still have Pluto there, and this new moon is actually conjunct Pluto, like off by 1 degree. So this is happening on the 13th. As I'm recording this is the 11th. So, I mean, late in the 12th or early in the 13th, depending on where you are in the world. But in general, we have to really look at the fact that this new moon is conjunct Pluto. Like, this is what we really need to just look at. I mean, we can look at the squares, and we'll talk about that stuff too. Make sure you check out the Capricorn season podcast that I did. The link is below to my podcast. You can go check that out. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Definitely helps me out, and you'll get notified for when new content comes around. So, but we need to look at this new moon conjunct Pluto. Okay, so what does it mean? I mean, Pluto and Capricorn, this whole generation is about restructuring the world, restructuring civilization, restructuring the governments, the systems, all the areas of the world that we need structure, all the areas of the world that we require and desire for there to be a newfound sense of order, and not a new world order, my friends, because, as we can see, that the fight between the new world order and the Great Awakening has already happened, and it's happening, and it's just really getting started. So, we can definitely expect, some explosive events to come out of this. I mean, I'm really looking at the Saturn and Jupiter squaring Mars, Saturn square Mars during this whole thing. These are long-term endeavors that are happening. Things that have been in the works for a while that are, now being made, now kind of resurrecting, or rather being enacted, I should say. So we're going to expect some long-term changes to come out of this. I mean, these transits right now, it's very heavy. Like, as you can see, there's really not a lot of fire. Right? You got the South Node in Sagittarius, and we've got Juno in Sagittarius. But then obviously Chiron in Aries, which, by the way, is making a square to Juno. But we need to look at, Venus right now. It's trining Juno. Which we can talk about that in a second too, and I'll discuss that a lot more in the 2020 workshop. The link is below for that as well. Make sure you join us on the 17th if you want to learn more about what the astrology of the whole year is going to be looking like for you and your sign specifically. Okay, so I mean, new moon in Capricorn, the general themes with this is rebuilding, restructuring, organization. Okay, really looking at our boundaries and saying in what ways can we overcome these boundaries, and in what ways can we perhaps acknowledge these boundaries. You know, like boundaries are there for a reason, but a lot of the boundaries are self-imposed, and the self-imposed boundaries specifically, we need to be very, very mindful of how those boundaries are limiting us, right? Because that's essentially what boundaries do. They can limit us, or they can ultimately guide us into newfound strength. And specifically, I mean, I'm looking at this new moon conjunct Pluto, right? I'm looking at that specifically. And we got Venus trine Uranus. We got Chiron square Venus. There's a lot of restructuring taking place. I mean, when we look at it collectively, we can see that we have Saturn and Jupiter here, right? We had the big conjunction on the 21st of December last year, and this is squaring up with Mars and now Uranus, which are going to create shocking changes. And what are we looking at? What type of changes? Saturn being authority, government, and Jupiter being economic, and also government in some ways too. And then we have Mercury squaring up with Uranus as well throughout all this, which is really bringing us a lot of shocking information. And I mean, as we can see, we have Saturn squaring Mars, Saturn in Aquarius squaring Mars. This is like definitely has a lot to do with the censorship that's been going on. I cannot talk about that, especially with Mercury square Mars and Mercury square Uranus. This is when it was all happening. So we're seeing a lot of that, and not to mention Neptune squaring the nodes right now. So we have a lot of fantasy and a lot of disillusionment going on in the collective right now, and that's very easily manipulatable. Okay, I don't even know that's a word, but we're very easily manipulated by fear and through fear. And this is really, really essential for us to tune in and learn how to trust again. And not in the outer authorities. And that's the big theme, I would say, that's really coming out of this new moon in Capricorn, is really learning not to rely on the outer authorities, but rather learn to rely on your own inner authority, which is your own intuition, your own inner being. You know, Capricorn these are the self-reliant signs, absolutely, self-reliant for sure. You know, even Taurus, as much as hard worker as they are, they're ruled by Venus, you know, which is about coming together, which is about unity and wanting to be together and wanting to not do everything alone. You know, Capricorn, Saturn, and Aquarius, you know, these are signs that are really dedicated to doing the journey alone, figuring it out on my own, and then I'll come around in other people. It's not to say that if you're a Capricorn or you're an Aquarius, you never want a relationship or you never want to be around other people. Of course you do. But that being said, you know, the journey is, I want to do it my way. I want to figure it out on my own first. It's cardinal energy. I could say that as an Aries with a Cancer moon. I want to do it my way first. I want to figure it out my own first, and then, you know, we'll talk, and then we'll have some relationships, and then we'll have some communication, then we'll have all that, right? So, I mean, okay, new moon conjunct Pluto. What the hell does that mean? Pluto is explosive, you know, it's like explosive atomic themes that are coming up. I mean, I'm not saying nuclear war here, but I am definitely seeing complete obliteration of the structures. This is also happening pretty much on the same degree that last year, around this time, Saturn-Pluto met, okay? I believe it was like 22 or 23 degrees. So these are the same degrees. Not to mention, the USA is having its Pluto return right now, which is, I mean, one of many reasonings for all this happening now as we're seeing it. But what we're single-handedly witnessing is the crumbling of our old reality, the crumbling of our old nature, and the complete restructuring, or the complete rebuilding. You know, because a lot of people, when we think about, you know, destroying the old paradigm and destroying the old world and letting it go and welcoming in the new world and this whole fucking love, light, ascension shit, right? when we look at that like objectively and not in the woo 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 kind of sense, you know, alien fucking, oh man. So we want to move away from that. We want to get into a more grounded place. You know, the true ascension is integration, right? And I mean, no one teaches us integration like fucking Saturn. Am I right? So with this new moon conjunct Pluto, like this is the obliteration that we've been really watching. And as I said last year, actually, I'm pretty sure I said this in our last year's yearly class that we did, the yearly live event where we went over the astrology. Sign up for that below. I talked about how, you know, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, it's breaking the crack in the foundation of society, and that crack, you know, it's the final crumble. Like it's like when it's finally cracked and then it starts to crumble. You can try and put as much cement on it and as much glue as you can and paper and fucking mache, but it's coming down, you know. And that final sledgehammer to the foundation of our societies, our systems, specifically government, financial, religious, all of that, we're going to see really the final blow. It's almost like the foundation has been so cracked and so chiseled at for the last little while, you know, since, I mean, for the last couple of years coming on. But it, like the final sledgehammer was that Saturn-Pluto conjunction of January of last year, 2020. And then what we have is someone put some fucking TNT at the bottom of it. So as it was slowly like starting, like rock by rock was like coming down, you know, as we were watching the foundation, as we've been watching the whole fucking year, this whole year, 2020, right? We're watching the foundation just come crumbling down. It's like someone put TNT at the bottom of it and said, okay, very, very precisely, if we put it right here, if we put the TNT right here, and we blow this sucker, it's all coming down. So, you know, this is what's happening. I truly believe that after, you know, between pretty much after January 13th, we're going to see it start to crumble, and we're going to see the divine plan really intervene with the path that has been chosen for us. Okay, so here's the thing. With this new moon, I really want you to focus on where in your life is requiring that targeted explosiveness, right? Because sometimes we need the catalyst. That's why we have relationships. That's why we go through trauma. That's why we go through all these hardships, these hard experiences, these challenging experiences, because it ultimately makes us better. It ultimately allows us to become better and more evolved and stronger. But we need those catalysts because those catalysts are what make us grow so rapidly, so quickly, right? Not effortlessly, but we're forced to change, right? We're forced to change. So in astrology, when we look at you know, situations where we're forced to change, we look at squares. You know, squares in astrology represent situations that we're forced to change, whether we like it or not, and whether it's a conscious action or an unconscious action, whether it's positive or negative. We're in a situation where we're forced to change. Okay, so we have Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, right, squaring Mars and Uranus. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, Uranus is sudden shock. Again, that shock is not always, you know, sometimes that shock is like, oh my God, you know, but I think oftentimes astrologers tend to put a little too much hype on Uranus, especially Uranus and Taurus. Like, the shock is not there. It's like we're aware of the fact of what we're doing at the planet. We're aware of what we've been doing to our, you know, what our institutions have been doing to us. We're aware of these things. So it shouldn't be that surprising when they all come crumbling down. So, you know, we have the Saturn-Jupiter making this aspect, Jupiter expanding the shock, right, in that square with Uranus, and Saturn, again, bringing in that kind of shocking, you know, we've been, like, this to me is censorship. So we've been expecting this for a long time, and we've been seeing this progressive momentum towards more and more and more censorship, right? There's a really good diagram. I'll share it on my story. If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter. And it talks about how, you know, you censor one side of the political spectrum, and then it moves up a beat, right? But then you've censored the furthest right or the furthest left, right? That's what happens. You censor it always starts with the polarities. You always start with the extremists, right? That's who you start censoring. But then what happens is once you censor the extremists, then the next level up becomes the extremists. The next level up, because you've already censored them, they're gone, their voices are no longer there. Then the next step up becomes the extreme, and then you censor that. And then the next step up becomes the extreme, and then you censor that. And then it's an infinite chain until you have one political narrative being pushed by the governing authorities. And this is what we're seeing now. I mean, Saturn being Saturn in Aquarius, this is talking about technology. This is talking about communication. This is talking about the collective consciousness. And then squaring off with Uranus, these are kind of collective shocks that we're experiencing in regards to what does Saturn symbolize and rule? Restrictions, boundaries, all of that thing. Saturn specifically is in a tighter square with Mars right now, but it's still reaching that square with Uranus. This is a long time coming. Again, this shock shouldn't be a shock to us because we've been witnessing it for a long time. We've been seeing this progressive censorship. We've been seeing this progressive deterioration of the systems in which we live. And we've been recognizing that they probably don't serve us in the highest capacity. In fact, we should all know that they don't serve us in the highest capacity. So what are we going to do? We need to make some changes, and that's what squares create. Squares create a period where we are being called to change, whether we want to or not. We're being forced to change. So with Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter, Jupiter in Aquarius squaring Uranus, we're being forced to witness the kind of shocking experience that we're experiencing with censorship. We're being forced to look at the very system that is crumbling. And with Saturn squaring Mars and coming up to that square with Uranus, we're really witnessing the crumbling of that. We're witnessing the kind of action of that. Mars in Taurus is not fast action, though. This is slow action. This is also methodical action, planned action. That's the kind of good side or the positive of Mars in Taurus is that, sometimes action, you got to build up to it. It's not always good to be the Aries, Mars and Aries, even though Mars is at home in Aries, it's not always good to just be like rampaging, and just charging into every situation. Oftentimes, war and specific, I'm using the example of war because we think Mars war, but any situation like that, it often requires a lot more thinking than it does action. There's time for action, and then there's time for thinking about what we are going to do and planning it all out, okay? So one thing I want to talk about too is just going back to the new moon conjunct Pluto. This is where we're going to see like I said, it's like the TNT explosion at the base of the structure, the concrete that has been cracked. The cracking, the final crack, the final break in it all was the sledgehammer, which was Saturn-Pluto conjunction, okay, Capricorn of last year. And then this structure, this is all crumbling. It's all crumbling. But now, within, I would say, the next week, post this new moon, especially as Jupiter moves into a direct square with Uranus the day after, in the next couple of days after the new moon, and Saturn starts to move, again, Saturn stays in that square with Mars for a little while, then Saturn starts to move into that square with Uranus. So the kind of shocking news, the revelations, the crumbling of the foundation, the crumbling of the dark. These are malevolent forces that we're witnessing here, and you can see that through the astrology. The squares, these are malevolent squares that are being, deteriorated. Saturn, Pluto, it's breaking down that which no longer serves. Okay, and the light is what serves. The dark is what serves itself. So we're moving beyond that, and it's about damn time we realize that. Okay. One thing I will say though too is that it's not just society that's kind of rearranging itself and perceptively crumbling. We can also see that our relationship dynamics are taking a little bit of a heat, there's some heat added to them, and perhaps some catalysm. Okay, Chiron square Venus right now. As much as Mars trine Venus is a nice harmonious placement, and it really allows for that. We also have Mars trining Uranus right now, or Venus trining Uranus as Venus leaves that trine with Mars and enters into that trine with Uranus, which is, again, shocking revelations to finances. Again, you can look at that on a world stage, specifically when we see Jupiter in that square with Uranus. Now we're watching the dip with Bitcoin, right? So we're seeing the kind of shocking, surges, with Bitcoin reaching its all-time high, Ethereum reaching its all-time high, all this stuff. And then now as we come into this point of recession. So that's also taking place in relationships, as we can see with Venus. Just share it with you here, so I can point to it, right? Venus and a trine here with Uranus. These are we're being made aware. Again, it's always not like Uranus is the news that is the quantum news, meaning that sometimes it's the news that we know we should look at and we know we should recognize, but we don't always want to. We don't always want to look at it. But then other times it's like, oh my gosh, how could I not have seen that? It's crazy. So with that being said, we need to take a look at specifically the patterns and the systems in which we have established our relationship patterns specifically. This is what's calling out to me now, is taking a deep look at our relationship patterns and saying, hey, what's working and what's not working anymore? Where do we need to be real with ourselves? Where do we need to be more grounded? This is an earth trine. Where can we be more grounded? Because ultimately, we don't want to create more sufferings for ourselves. Whether you're in a relationship or whether you're out of a relationship, you should be aware of the relationship patterns that you hold, because those patterns are what either make or break your relationships and ultimately contribute to your suffering or alleviate you from your suffering, right? So you got to be mindful of that. You got to be aware of that. Now, that being said, Venus is also squaring off with Chiron, like exact on this new moon. Exact. And really what that's doing is it's bringing out our deepest wounds. And it's bringing out the wounds. This is a cardinal square between earth and fire, meaning that it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to sting a little bit. And it's going to feel heavy. It's going to feel heavy. The stuff that's coming up, it's going to feel heavy. So whether you're transmuting old trauma, or whether you're going through a breakup, or whether you're evolving your relationship into something better, or whether you're getting into a new relationship and you're being aware of your patterns, wherever you're at in the stage of your journey, these patterns are being brought up for you to witness and be made aware of, and not get linked in the traps. Okay, this trine between Venus and Uranus is really bringing that out. It's really bringing out, like, hey, what do I need to work on? What do I need to see? What do I need to be more aware of? Where am I not seeing things clearly, perhaps? Saturn squaring Uranus doesn't make it easy, right? It really doesn't. But it's important to look at. We've got to look at it regardless. We've got to look at it, okay? Juno's also trining Chiron, so we're kind of bringing in this renewal type of energy towards our relationships, towards the long-term vision for our relationships, right? It's like, is this serving you in the highest capacity, or is it not serving you in the highest capacity? Is this person constantly bringing out my wounds in a positive way, for growth, mutual growth? Or is this person just constantly stabbing me in the back? We got to be mindful of these habits, these traits, these qualities in our relationships and in our relationship patterns in order for us to move beyond, all right? So this new moon ultimately is going to really, be a big catalyst for a lot of it, especially if you're a cardinal sign. If you're a cardinal sign from about, I would say, 18 degrees, Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, Libra, to about 27 degrees, okay? That gap, if you have any planets there, look at that right now. And if you have like one of your big three, your sun, moon, rising, and or the ruler of your sun, moon, or rising in one of those placements, look at that now, because we got to be aware of where these changes are taking place in our life. As I said, this is the TNT that is blowing the foundation. When I'm talking collectively, I'm looking at the systems, like governments. It's all being restructured right now. If you're not following, what's going on, it'll all come out in a few days, my friends, a few days. So, but if you're applying this to your own life, that TNT explosion to the foundation is the old foundation, the old cracked, the old dirty, the old rugged foundation that you have laid and continue to build on. It's like you cannot build on a shitty foundation. You must build on a strong foundation. And when the foundation is too rocky, when it's too broken, when it's too dirty and when it's too unstable, we must tear it down and build a new one. And that's what we're doing now, both collectively and interpersonally. So we need to be really, really mindful of how this plays out in our own lives. All right, I've kind of told you some of the themes coming up here, but you gotta, this is why learning astrology is important, because you gotta be able to apply this to your own life. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want to spend years learning astrology, hire an astrologer. Okay, I still got some slots open for January for reading, so make sure you go and click the link below, linktree.com/Nicholls. You can book a reading with me. But yeah, this in general is just, it's looking very explosive. I'm not gonna lie, looking very explosive. I don't say that often, because astrology is not always explosive. Sometimes it's implosive, and other times it's building, and other times it's active, and other times it's passive. But right now it's very explosive. It is building. It's building that momentum, like this explosive momentum that's been building since last year, as I said. But in general, when I'm looking at the relationship kind of aspects and traits going on here as well, with Venus, with Chiron, Mars, we got to be aware of where we are restricting ourselves and where we are desiring to experience greater liberation for ourselves. Are you feeling supported in your life? Are you supporting yourself in your life? Are you ready to call in, the relationship of your dreams, or are you living the relationship of your dreams? Are you saying goodbye to a relationship, or are you, laying that foundation in a new relationship right now, where you're building on, that which you've already learned and healing from that which you've already experienced? Collectively, we've got to be really, really mindful of the overall direction in which we're building. We got to be very aware of the media manipulation as we're experiencing right now, right? Neptune square the nodes. It's a big, big indicator, my friends, big indicator. I'm just saying, be very mindful of the news that you're getting. We also have Uranus square Mercury, okay? Again, shocking news. Be very mindful of that. Be very mindful of that. And recognize the kind of secrets that are coming to the surface as we see that with Saturn squaring Mars and Taurus, and we also have Jupiter squaring Uranus. They're bringing up the secrets that might be a little shocking to some of us, as we're going to really see what our world is. We're going to see reality for what it is, for maybe the first time in our lives, depending on who you are and how far along your journey you are. Because if you're watching this, you're on the journey of awakening, and you're on that path, and you've already begun that path, and you're already pretty damn far along that path. Maybe you're just getting started. For others, maybe you're veterans, as we like to call it. And maybe you're just discovering this now, and you just happen to find my page, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But in general, my friends, if you're attracted to this conversation, then you're along that journey. And what that means is that you need to be uber aware of everything that's going down right now. And you're really being called into your highest service right now. Because those are the only seats that Earth has left vacant. Okay? Is the people that are ready to be of service, the people that are ready to thrive, the people that are ready to step into their highest path and to birth their soul and live from their soul. If you're not living from your motherfucking soul, and let me tell you from experience, my friends, that can be some of the most challenging shit you'll ever go through. Because when you can choose your soul over all comforts, when you can choose your soul and your heart over, the sweet pleasures of life and the sweet illusions and fantasies of life, when you can choose your purpose, when you can choose to stay anchored and grounded in that purpose, regardless, that's strength. And that's what we're here for. All right. And you have that within you. It's just about activating that, awakening that, and embodying that in every damn moment, my friends. All right. So last thing I'll say about all this is we're witnessing the TNT. It's coming. So expect some big shit to come out, I would say, between the 13th and the 17th, leading up to, obviously, the United States inauguration. And I mean, just the craziness going on in the world right now. So stay woke, remember that the most important thing here is embodiment. The very most important thing you can do is embody your soul and walk on your soul path. And when you can commit to that path and choose that path, no matter what, you're anchoring in the new world for our children, our grandchildren, our great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, because that's what we're here for. That's what we're born for, and we came to Earth for this shit, my friend. So even though it's about to be a shit storm, we're literally in the midst of the storm. This is the fucking storm. New moon conjunct Pluto, baby. Like, come on. You don't get crazier than this. We're here for this, though. This is literally why we're here. And if you haven't realized that now, realize it now. It's all happening. And all lies are not supported by nature. All lies are coming to the surface. And all the illusions and the fantasies of what we have believed reality to be is now being revealed. The curtain is being drawn. Remember the Wizard of Oz? Oh, don't hide, don't show my small self, you know. Oh, the great wizard behind the curtain. Just a regular man. Well, you're going to find out that a lot of these politicians are shills. And a lot of these fucking religious officials are shills. And a lot of these leaders are demons. Satanists, literally, but also demons. So stay woke, my friends. Stay woke. And remember your purpose, why you're here. Remember who you are. I love you. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely new moon. And remember that you're always loved, you're always protected, and you're always supported. Anchor in the light, my friends. This is why we are here. Happy new moon. Have a blessed new moon. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this video. And also comment below your sun, moon, rising. And if you're a Capricorn or a Cancer, let me know below, because I'd love to hear about your current experiences, everything going on. Love you. Take care.